Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on this new episode of Inspiring Our World. My name is Julie Tara. I'll be your host for this, and I am thrilled to bits to have my great friend Dave Balzer on this call with me. Now, Dave is our Nikken technical advisor. He has been in the process of developing many of our technologies as well as others of his own, and we value his expertise highly. And today we're going to be talking about air and our KenkoAir Purifier. So hi, Dave. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Julie. Thank you very much. And I was listening to you do the introduction, and I realized that this is a real yin yang. You're upbeat. You've got this spirit. You've got this joyful presentation. And then there's Dave, who's feeling like Eeyore a little bit right now, but but that's okay. That's okay. Eeyore has some knowledge. Eeyore has some information that relevant to the air filtration system that I think might be worthwhile.
Absolutely. Well, people do love your podcasts, and so I really appreciate. I know you have a very busy schedule, so let's get to it. Let's talk about air, the most important nourishment that we need.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people right now are pretty sensitized to air and air pollutants, and this stems in a large part to what happened with that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
Tell us about that.
And what we had was a long train, probably too many cars than it should have been, that hadn't been inspected sufficiently, so there were some ball bearings that probably should have been replaced that weren't replaced. We'll find out more later. The bottom line is there's a big wreck. And a couple of these tanker cars, a number of them, were filled with pressurized vinyl chloride. And vinyl chloride is a gas that's used to make various plastics. If you have plastic, that white plastic pipe in your irrigation system in your lawn, or a lot of places have it in their homes. I have an older home, so I have copper, but a lot of people have PVC, polyvinyl chloride pipe, white pipe. And that gas that's in those tankers is fundamental in making a whole bunch of plastics, including the white plastic pipe, water pipes that people have in their homes. And when the train derailed, these pressurized tanks were pretty ready to explode and ultimately caught fire. I'm still not clear whether or not they were set on fire on purpose in order to try to tame or mitigate some of the spew from the PVC gas. Either way, they caught fire. And so we had PVC gas going into the atmosphere, as well as the oxidation products, the burn products from the PVC and whatever that entailed. And it's not stuff you want to breathe in.
Yeah.
And if you were living in the area and you were in a closed room with your KAP, with your KenkoAir Purifier, you would have been significantly less concerned, because the KenkoAir Purifier has this wonderful activated charcoal layer which would have absorbed that vinyl chloride gas and taken it out. And that leads us to, okay, so we don't really have a situation here in Southern California where we have, like they had in Ohio, where you have an urgent and acute air pollution problem.
Yes.
We got a lot of air pollution. We have smog. You can see it. And the irony is that the air pollution inside your house is significantly higher than it is outside in the quote fresh air. And that we have, not only we're trapping air inside our homes, but we have a lot of parts and systems in our homes, like the couch behind you. And I don't want to pick on that, but the fabrics are made with certain chemicals and they outgas, and all those outgassings go into the air, and you either breathe it or you filter it.
Yes.
We choose to filter it. And we know that we have a product that is the best on the market, does the best job, has several different types of filtration and several different types of technologies that add together to give you a unit that is unsurpassed.
Yeah.
Are there other units as good? I don't know. I don't know that I can say unequivocally, though, no, there's nobody that's as good. Let's say but nobody's better. We've got the best. So when you add them together, and so we've got kind of a gross mesh filter on the outside, which catches the canary feathers and the dog hairs and things like that, so that they don't clog up the works. And that's really easy to change, and that's really easy to rinse off in the sink, and you can get rid of that. And then next is the activated charcoal filter, and that's the one that's going to catch the gases. That's the one that's going to absorb the gases. And I'll get more into the activated charcoal in a little bit, because it's very fascinating stuff. And is this the same activated charcoal that's in our water filters? Yeah, activated charcoal is really cool, and it really has characteristics that are mind-boggling. And then you get to the HEPA filter, and the HEPA stands for high efficiency particle air, and then you add the filter at the end. So that it's a HEPA filter. And then we do something that very, very few air purifiers do, and that is we have a negative ion generator that spews millions of negative ions per cubic centimeter out the back of the unit, so that they can go out into the room and circulate. And when you combine the negative ions with the other stages of filtration, it's a slam dunk.
You know, you said so much here, and there's some stories that come up for me, but I have 6 of them in my home. I have one in every room. My bedroom, my sitting room right here has one, and I think of it as it creates happy air, because I feel happier breathing this air. And what you said about the air inside being so much worse than the air outside is kind of a mortifying thought, I have to say, because nobody generally thinks that. They assume that the air is worse when they go out. And of course, sometimes it is, as you said, with this terrible thing that happened in Ohio. When we had last year, around this time, a little bit earlier than this time of the year, we had a huge fire in my neighborhood, burned down 1,000 homes plus. Ooh. And I had to leave, for about 5 days. And when I came back, I mean, my air was on the whole time, everything, and it was amazing how fast I was fine, whereas other people on the street were complaining because the fire had come within just yards of on 3 sides of this particular street where I live. So yeah, I was never so grateful. So one thing that comes for me is you never know when you need good air until you need good air, and when you need it, bam, you need it right now.
Well, you also look at the sensors. Like I went to my living room and I sit there and I'll hear it click up. I'll hear it click up to high gear.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, okay, nothing that I'm aware of would cause that to click high gear. I open the slider and I go out in the back and I can smell one of my neighbors with their fireplace on.
Oh, wow.
Now, it wasn't high enough for me to detect it with my astounding sense of smell. Not really. But the unit knew, and the unit knew it had to go into overdrive in order to compensate for that. I just want to read this quote here because I have it out here ready to go. Yeah. This is from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and they have said, the air within homes and other buildings can be more seriously polluted than the outdoor air, even in the largest and most industrialized cities. It's just a fact.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's counterintuitive. It's completely counterintuitive. You would think I'm inside, I'm protected from the outside.
Yes.
But it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. It's 2 to 5 times higher indoors than out. And of course, we spend 90% of our time. Well, you don't, but most of us spend 90% of our time indoors.
Right. I love going out and hiking.
I know you're out there riding horses and doing whatever.
No, we don't ride horses, but I do get out. Yeah.
And of course, who's indoors? The elderly.
Yes.
Like my mom. And I mentioned that when I'm done with this presentation, I'm going to go visit my 93-year-old mother who's in a assisted care living facility here in California, not too far away.
Yeah.
And get her a new consumer cellular phone. That's not a plug.
No.
I just say it because they're the only ones that still make flip phones. And that's what older people want. They want the flip phones. They don't care about the screen. They don't care about sending texts. They don't care about taking pictures. And so that's what I'll get her. So you got the elderly indoors most of the time. You got children indoors.
Yeah.
90% of the time.
And a
So
lot of them are crawling on carpets and stuff,
and
you know.
it's just, yeah, and I don't want to get into the water that they're drinking, but I did get emails from people about the tragedy, the disaster in East Palestine, Ohio.
Yes.
About what about the air? What if I had my Nikken products there, you know, what would it address? So we're talking about the air today, but it would also address the water pollutants.
Yes.
And we would completely ameliorate those.
Absolutely.
So that's just an aside.
Oh, I love you use that word, ameliorate. That's such a fabulous word.
Oh,
nobody uses that word. I love it.
I don't mean to come off as pedantic. Okay, so I wanted to, you talked about beautiful air.
Yeah.
Is that
happy air. Happy air. It just makes me happy.
Happy air. And I wanted to go through the negative ions. Again, remember back in the day, you're too young for this, but back in the day, people used to have negative ion generators on their desks. These little pods, sometimes they were pyramids, sometimes they were spheres, and they had like a little wire brush that stuck up out of it, and that would emit negative ions.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they didn't attach that to a filter. So what the negative ions do is they charge the particles, the droplets, the dust particles that you have in the air, and it's like adding Velcro to them. So that when they interact with something physically, when they mechanically bounce into something, they stick and stay.
Mm-hmm.
So having this negative ion generator on your desk in front of you maximized the opportunity for you to have all those charged particulates adhere to your lungs and respiratory system. Sorry.
Oh, so yeah.
So what we do is we have the negative ion generator, and we use that to charge the particulates in the air so that we can maximize the chances that we will filter them out with either the charcoal or with the HEPA. The other thing we do when we have to talk about happy air, we're creating happy air, because negative ions give us, when we bathe ourselves in negative ions, they give us what they call, the Japanese called Shinrin Yoku.
Yes.
Which is forest air breathing. When you walk in the forest, the trees make a lot of negative ions, and so you're sitting there, got these negative, and you feel good. Or you're at the base of a waterfall, and you've got the water smashing into the pool at the bottom, and those droplets, the droplets of water, when they hit, squeeze out negative ions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother story, which I guess if we have time we could go into. But and you feel good. And so what we've tried to do is to take that concept, to take that knowledge that we have about negative ions and their partnership with nature, and put that together in the air purifier.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And without creating ozone, right? Because that's something I tried once, and I was like, I don't like that feeling of that ozone generator.
I really don't even know if you can buy the desktop ionizers anymore. But one of the things, it's the truth, and I don't mean to bash the people who make them, but they used high voltage ionization, going up to kilovolts in order to create the negative ions. And they made a bunch of negative ions, but they also made a bunch of ozone.
Yeah.
And what happened was the ozone caused the wiring on the circuits and the wires inside of the unit to deteriorate, so that the units essentially self-digested because of the ozone.
Oh my gosh, they self-destructed.
Isn't that crazy?
That reminds me of the batteries in iPhones, the old ones. No, I mean, it's a good marketing ploy, right? Like, have it break and then you have to get another one.
It's planned obsolescence. It's
planned
self-destruction. Yeah. And so we don't have that. And we don't have that because we don't use high voltage to create the negative ions. We have what we call parallel plate technology, where we have these two electrodes very, very, really close to each other. Low voltage, and the arcing that goes on between the two creates the negative ions. We are completely and 100%, 99.99999% ozone free. Let's put it this way: when the unit was tested for ozone, which it has to be, particularly in California, but
yeah, because California has a real thing about that.
Right. So when we came back, we said, how much ozone do we produce? And they said, below detectable limits. In other words, it's so little. If there is any, there's so little we can't test it. We can't detect it. We don't have the means. So yeah, it's crucial with the ozone. The negative ions again are just doing us a whole lot of good. I don't know if you want me to talk about the impact of the negative ions on what's going on with the droplets.
I want you to talk about everything.
Okay, one of the things that we know, and I'm reaching over here so I can get the reference, and I'll be glad to send this to anybody. I can send it to you so you can share it. SciRep 2015, they had an article, excuse me, from Hagbaum et al. Ionizing air affects influenza virus infectivity and prevents airborne transmission. So we've got these negative ions going up there and finding droplets that are floating around that have viruses in them.
Okay.
And the negative ions themselves deactivate the virus.
Wow.
So that it cannot infect you. So even if the droplet makes its way to your lungs with a virus in it, if the virus has interacted with the negative ions, the virus is inactive. Not going to bother you.
That is just fantastic.
And I can go to this, and I'm not going to mention any kind of virus. This is just viruses in general.
In general.
Because of course people are going to say, is that true for COVID? And COVID is a virus. It's a retrovirus. So one could reach that conclusion, but I don't want to make that claim directly.
No, of course not.
How was that for a dance?
It was a great little dance. We're doing good here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very well. I mean, I think there are millions of viruses and bacteria all around us all the time, and within our bodies too. So, anything we can do to just support our system and make it strong and robust, that's huge. That's huge, especially in this day and age.
And this particular paper took a look at influenza virus.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you live, but where I live, influenza right now is much more of a problem than other viruses.
Mm-hmm.
It's just exploded.
Yeah.
And the hospitalizations here are higher for flu than they are for others.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting where, like, I don't know, Julie, have you had COVID?
I believe I got it before it was even a thing. It was at the end of February.
Of course, you're one of the.
I was an early adopter. Let's just say that. I was an early adopter. I had gone out to LAX Hilton to do a Conscious Life Expo, and we all got sick. And we came back and nobody knew, what it was, because it didn't have that name or anything. But I believe that was, and it was just for me it was, I hardly ever get sick. And that's because I believe I eat well, I exercise well, and I live in a Nikken wellness home and have done for many years. So I'm, really a great believer in prevention.
And you're careful.
And I'm really mindful about health because of my family background and so forth. But I think it was 3 days. I wasn't in bed. I was just didn't feel right for 3 days. And I knew something is really off. And this is something I've never dealt with before. I knew that. This is something I've never dealt with before, but I'm dealing with it. And as I say, I wasn't in bed. I ate really well. I know how to modify my diet, if I'm not feeling great. And of course, I have my air cranked up and drinking tons of Primag water, hydrogen.
Doing all the right things.
All those things. Yeah.
Let me ask you
nutritionals, of course, taking more of those. I was upping everything. Immunity, lactoferrin, all that. I was just upping it. Yes.
Let me ask you a personal question. When you go to the grocery store or the market, do you still mask?
I do not.
Okay. Curious.
I do not.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm still masking. I'm still interacting with the outside world the same way I was when we were at the depths of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I haven't gotten it yet.
Right.
I'm knocking on wood. I haven't gotten it yet, and I need to avoid it for at least the next 2 weeks, because then Sarah and I are going to Japan.
Wonderful.
To attend the wedding of the son of a really good friend. He's been a good friend for 40 years.
Oh.
I don't want to be in quarantine.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't. Nobody who's traveling wants to be in quarantine or at any.
I just don't want to get it. I do want to get it. My daughter's a professor of mathematics at UC Berkeley, and one of her associates, who she's known for many, many years, a good friend, really bright gal. Can I say gal? Is that not good?
I think it's fine, but in this day and age, we can't say anything without somebody being upset.
Well, I don't want to say female, because then there's woman. I can't say woman either, because male's in there, and woman has men in there. So sometimes I say feeper people.
Feeper people.
Anyway, so this associate of Laura's came down with COVID, long-term COVID, and is trying to recover. And her brain is so fogged.
Yes, I've heard.
This is somebody who makes their living by being mathematicians, being sharp,
yes,
being at the cutting edge,
yes,
of biostatistics, and she can't think. She can't make decisions. She has a hard time just scheduling her day.
Wow.
And I don't want that.
Not at all.
I want that.
Of course not. Nobody wants that at all. I mean, and you know what? It's one of the reasons actually I take Clarity. I take it twice a day. I find that an extraordinary product that we have. I just want to make sure I keep my brain clear and focused, so I can focus and do what I love to do, which is help people with their health and wealth.
See, I do the Vital Balance.
Yes.
I do the Vital Balance because it has the medium chain triglycerides in it.
Yes.
Which for somebody my age is particularly important in getting and maintaining that burst of clarity, mental clarity.
Correct.
I love it.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It's a fabulous.
And I actually am one of those few people. I like the taste.
I do too. I don't have any issue with the taste. I had J. Green Zymes, I had Ciaga, I had all kinds of things in there. Plus a banana or something like that. That always makes everything.
The banana always helps, and it's amazing how when you're making a smoothie. See, normally for a banana, I like the ones that are firm. But for a smoothie, give me the ones that are almost all brown.
Yeah. Because it's sweet.
Anyway,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
We're digressing here.
We are digressing. Let's get back to air. How many air systems do you have in your house? I'm just curious.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4, right. Most people do. And something I've noticed, like some people say, oh, I turn it off and then I turn it on when I go to bed. Like say it's the one in their bedroom. And I'm like, no, don't turn it off. You know what? The amount of electricity they use is so minimal, right? Let's talk about that.
When you throttle way down,
yeah,
the amount of electricity that you're using is absolutely minimal. It's like having 2 clock radios going.
Right.
Really. So no, I'm 100% agreement with you. Even when it's down at the quiescent state, when it's really down, at minimum level, it's still working. It's still creating the negative ions. It's still pulling in air from the outside to do the filtration, and it's helping. It's helping,
yes.
And
And so it's huge when you also have pets. I don't have any pets right now, but we had our husky dog, Kobach, and it was fantastic and we had 2 cats. So it really made a difference with pets. Well, especially with the smell too,
Right. We have our husky German Shepherd mix.
Oh yeah.
Calyx. And we try to keep him clean, but he makes so much hair. Yes. He sheds so much, and he has let's just say he's odoriferous. And
great word.
And the air filtration systems just work miracles. I was going to tell you a story when we first introduced the air filtration system with the charcoal layer.
Yes.
Which is the layer that's going to absorb the gaseous pollutants.
Okay.
The odors. We had a lady who lived in Massachusetts, and she had a daycare in the back of her house. And the night before, she let the dog out the backyard and got skunked. Oh. And it skunked part of the building.
Yeah.
She was trying to think, how am I going to be able to bring kids into this room? By morning, gone.
Wow. And that is a testimony.
And we get a lot of reports too. We get a lot of testimonials from people who own hair salons.
Yes.
Now think about the amount of polluting gases that I'm going to say toxic, but okay, they're noxious at any rate.
For sure.
That you spray into the air, that whether it's nail polish or hairspray or dye or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And people have one or two of these in their salon, and it absolutely minimizes the exposure to them to have to breathe this stuff all day.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a huge boon for anyone who works in that kind of situation. It actually reminds me of a friend of mine who's a painter, and he has a wonderful, wonderful big painting studio. It's really phenomenal, and he's very prolific. But I remember when I first went there, I was like, David, you can't. He was using car varnishes and things along with his paints. I was like, I can hardly breathe in here. You need the KenkoAir Purifier. I brought one in, he tried out, he said, oh my gosh, it's like so different. So of course he got one right away. In fact, we did a trade, I remember, we did trade for paintings, for the air and the sleep. He had also been a Vietnam vet. He actually had a Purple Heart from that, and it was pretty spectacular. And then he just had some issues, as you would expect. He didn't sleep very well. He woke up, he had trauma and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, well, I don't know, but I love my sleep system. Why didn't you, when you have a go with it? So we traded, and he just so appreciated what Nikken products could support him in living a better life. I mean, really a happier life, because he was, had issues.
You did him an absolute huge favor to his long-term health by getting him out of that atmosphere of these heavy outgassing vapors from the paints and the varnishes and the turpentines that he's using to clean. You doing that long term is a disaster, and
I just felt it. The moment I walked in, I was like, you can't do this. This is really not going to be helpful for your health at all. And yeah, it was really fun. And I have his paintings and I enjoy them in my house. So it worked always.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And he sleeps like a baby. Yay.
Congratulations. Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You helped a friend unwittingly, and now he appreciates it, I'm sure.
I love it. And, I think of all the places that need, here we are talking about air, I think of all the office buildings and and play groups and schools. There are so many places that, who doesn't need good air? Dave, we all need good air all the time. And what is it? We can only survive, 2 minutes, 3? I don't know how long it is, but, before we...
I would say 2 minutes for me. I can't. But yes, so you've got air. Water you need, but you can go days without water.
Yeah.
You can go weeks without food.
Yeah.
You can't go very long without air.
Right.
And the number of breaths that you're taking every minute, and the amount of materials that you want to avoid taking into your lungs so that they're not doing the air filtering.
Exactly. Great.
They're pretty efficient. And yes, and you will breathe it in, and you will, in LA here, I'm in Orange County actually, but still we have San Pedro, which is a port right here, and just tons and tons of semi trucks going out all over the country, delivering their loads.
Yes.
And they're burning diesel.
Yes.
Diesel's really harmful. And you want to get it, you want to get the diesel combustion elements out of the air that you breathe. Is
diesel more harmful than petrol?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Petrol. But this is I don't know how many people in the U.S. say petrol.
Well, why do you call it gas when it's a liquid?
It's gasoline. It's gasoline.
Gasoline.
So gas is short for gasoline, which is what you guys call petrol.
Yes.
And yes, the particulates from diesel are much more severe. And they're much more, a lot of the particles are smaller in that it's a whole lot easier to filter out, like my neighbor's fireplace fire where they're burning some wood. It's a whole lot easier to filter out those smoke particles than it is the combustion contaminants that are raised by diesel.
Very interesting.
You need a HEPA.
Okay.
You need a HEPA.
And
I'm going to go to back to EPA
Yes.
and FDA
Yes.
and CDC.
Yes.
Are those enough letters for you?
Yes.
You go to the CDC website. Don't take my word for it. Go to the cdc.gov website, and in the Boolean window where you're going to put in what you want them to search for, put in HEPA filter.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you got to do, and click.
Okay.
And you will get statements, articles, writings from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, telling you, get a HEPA. It's the best thing you can do for your indoor air and COVID. And yes, they do say COVID. They mentioned it, and they published this at the height of COVID because they wanted clinics and hospitals who didn't already have HEPA systems installed to get the HEPAs so that they could minimize the distribution of the COVID virus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think everyone took it more seriously. I mean, I know all the restaurants, and of course they were closed for a long time, but when they reopened, all of them were advertising the fact that they'd put in some very good HEPA filters, and you could tell. I mean, you could absolutely tell. You'd walk in, you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't have that old musty smell that this particular restaurant used to have, you know, and it just was so much clearer and cleaner. And what you said about our lungs, I mean, our lungs do a phenomenal job, and we want to give them all the support that they deserve, just like our kidneys, you know, with the water. You know, why make the kidneys work harder with bad water? Why make the lungs work harder with bad air?
Why make your liver go into overdrive or overtime in order to detoxify what you've got in your system that got into your bloodstream because you weren't breathing clean air, drinking good water,
being proactive, you know. And it's so much cheaper to be proactive, isn't it? I mean, it's so much cheaper than just waiting and then start having your lungs break down or your liver break down. Really good point on the liver there. Yeah, absolutely. Is this proactivity, and that's exciting because that's taking more charge of your own health. It's realizing that you really can't just wait until the body breaks down and then hope somebody else is going to fix it. Like, take care every day. And that's those habits every day, every night.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, gee, should I change the oil in my car? You know what? It seems to be running fine. I think I'll just leave the oil the way it is until something breaks. And we all know if you do that, it's going to be something serious and it's going to be something expensive. And so why do that to your own body?
Absolutely.
Put the cleanest in that you can. And, you know, like the old computer programmers used to say, garbage in, garbage out. Put good stuff in.
Yes.
And you'll get good stuff out, and you'll get good performance. And yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. But if you don't think about it a little bit, and if you don't take action to do it, then it's just words. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's yeah. I think that again, we go back to the beginning. Given the multiplicity of technologies that we've put together that have coalesced into the air filtration system, it's really a smart thing to do. I think it's an essential thing to have, at least in the room where you do the most living in your house, whether that's the living room, whether that's the kitchen, whether that's the bedroom. Can you unplug it and move it from room to room? Yes, but again, we talked about it. The ability to clear the air in a 24-hour period, assuming it's operating continuously, is enormous.
Yeah.
When you go to bed at night, you like to have the KAP there working all day, so that when you walk into the room at night to go to bed, the air is clean.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't want to start cleaning it when your head hits the pillow.
No.
You want to walk into a clean room.
Absolutely, 100% agree. You know, and you know, the idea of like, yeah, you can move them around. Of course you can. The question is, will you? If you only have one and it's in your sitting room, will you move it to your bedroom every night? And like you say, you want to walk in and it's all filled with happy air, you know, and peaceful air, so that you're gonna, because it's the peacefulness, the calmness, I just love how I feel inside of a wellness home. I mean, this is why I love Nikken, because 28 years I've been living in a Nikken wellness home, and every new product that comes out, I'm like, okay, let me add it, because I know it's going to be good. I know it's going to support. and be beneficial. And so I wouldn't probably move an air system from the sitting room to my bedroom every night. I like going to bed at night at 10:30, whatever it is, and know that all day long that air has been clearing that room. And in Colorado, it's cold in the winters. You can't have the windows open all the time. I do like to open the window some, but you just can't do that all winter long.
So we talked about, I spent a lot of time talking about the negative ions. I'm going to leave that technology go. But I did want to talk about the activated charcoal portion of the filter,
yes,
and the HEPA a little bit more. Activated charcoal, or carbon, they take carbon, and in this case, it's all coconut shell. So it is a renewable resource. We're not, going in and stripping things that aren't going to grow back. We're using coconut shell, and what they do is they put it in a furnace and they make charcoal out of it, and then they put it in a separate furnace that's saturated with oxygen, so that the charcoal itself gets highly oxygenated. And what that does is it creates millions of tiny pores. It creates a surface area, and I always like to talk about that. The surface area is 2,000 square meters per gram.
What?
So that, it's mind-boggling. So that if you have 2 grams of the activated charcoal powder,
yes,
which is about a teaspoon, maybe a little less than a teaspoon, it has more surface area than a soccer field.
It's incredible.
Or a football field. It's incredible. So you can imagine, I know Thomas's English Muffins talks about nooks and crannies.
Yes.
They've got nothing over this activated charcoal, which has these fundamental, incredible amount of surface area, so that when it interacts with a vinyl chloride molecule from the tanker that just derailed, it'll absorb it and it'll hold on to it. And what's nice about the activated charcoal, and this is true in the water systems as well, once it grabs onto a pollutant, once it grabs onto a contaminant, it does not let go. It's there.
Okay.
Now, of course, over a period of time, long period of time, you can exhaust all of those nooks and crannies, and it's time to change the filter because you need to refresh the activated charcoal. HEPA, the HEPA filter is essentially this convoluted or this fluted mesh. Think of it as a sieve with really, really tiny pores.
Okay.
And HEPA was first developed, ironically, for the nuclear power industry, because they created a bunch of airborne uranium and radon and all these other kinds of products, and they wanted to protect the workers as much as possible. N95 is great, but guess what? Get it out of the air before you ever expose your workers to it.
Especially
so that's where it started.
Yeah.
It's now used, HEPA is now used, and you talked about restaurants being required to, during COVID, being required to install HEPAs. One of the safest places to be during the pandemic was on an airplane, because the airplanes all converted to HEPA, so that the recirculating air that was coming back into the cabin was getting cleaned. It was getting cleaned of all the viruses.
Wow, I did not know that. That's really good to know, because that's always...
no, it's not. I go, when I fly, and I have flown a few times, I still wear a mask.
Yes.
But I don't get too worried about it, because I know the air inside the cabin is clean, and it gets turned over a lot. So I know it's a pretty safe place to be.
I love to hear that, because I haven't been on a plane for several years now. And so this is good to know. For everyone listening here, this is good to know.
Yeah. Well, I've got 11 and a half hours coming up to go LA to Tokyo. So I'm going to be in the plane for a while. But I have flown a number of times since and during the pandemic. So I felt safe on the plane. So we've got HEPAs absolutely required in surgical operating rooms.
Yes.
All the operating theaters across the country and clinics have HEPA systems installed. High-tech industries, chip manufacturers, and we talk about chip manufacturers, and now it's kind of controversial, because are we getting some chips from here and not buying chips from there, and the US? Well, the chips are silicon wafers about this big.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing now is we are putting millions of transistors in very, very small areas. So the structures themselves, photolithic structures themselves, are extremely small. And you could imagine, if you have dust, if you have a droplet, if you have any contaminant there, you ruin the whole thing.
Yes, of course.
So they have them in high-tech industries like silicon chip manufacturers, research facilities. The NIH has them, the CDC has them, and your home should have them.
So what's really wonderful about all this is that just the awareness about air has just risen so much in the last few years. And this is why there's always good things that come out of difficult things, always good possibilities that come forth out of challenge.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I actually, now this is going to sound crazy for me to say, but I don't know what's gotten into the soil in East Palestine. They pronounce it differently than in the Middle East, but at any rate, the Ohio fiasco.
Yes.
I don't know what's gotten into the soil. Hence, I don't know what's gotten into the water system.
Yes.
But the air problem, because of diffusion into the atmosphere,
yes,
is probably pretty limited right now, probably pretty low.
Yeah.
But if I lived there, I would still be worried about walking on the grass, walking on the surfaces that have been contaminated, and I would be concerned about drinking the water.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
If I had a waterfall or aquapor or whatever you want to call it, depends on where you live, I would not be concerned.
Yeah.
I would drink the filtered water, the PIMAG filtered water, whether it's the sport bottle or the waterfall. I would drink that if I lived in East Palestine, Ohio, without hesitation.
Absolutely. You know, it's the only water I drink. And I was thinking about the other day when I put the water in the kettle, actually, and I was like, you know, in England, when you get a cup of tea, it's awful because the water's so bad. Like if you're in a train station or something, it tastes like chlorine. And I was just thinking, it's so lovely to make a fabulous cup of tea because I'm English, you know, I do love my tea in the morning. And with PIMAG water, just because it's just delicious.
Right.
You know.
And I know this is not about water, but take a shower at somebody else's house or at a hotel where they don't filter the water and take out the chlorine or neutralize the chlorine. You smell it. It smells like a swimming pool.
Oh, it does.
When you're done, and it's the same thing where if you've been using the PIMAG water for any length of time and you drink some tap water or go to the park and drink out of the faucet, you can taste the chlorine. It's amazing.
It's
just absolutely amazing.
You get so much more discernment happening, and your hair is very different and all of that, you know, too, with the shower. But we could talk about every part, and we will. We'll do other.
Well, I think that in all fairness, air and water go together.
Yeah.
Even if it's only from an Aristotelian sense, air and water and sky and earth and fire, it all goes together. But again, I'm going to go back to what we tried to do with the air wellness, and that was to couple a number of different technologies, leading edge technologies, together into one unit, so we could deliver to your living room, to your kitchen, to your bedroom, cleanest air possible, and also hopefully give you a feeling of euphoria is too strong, but the Shinrin Yoku, like when you're walking in a forest, this forest air breathing, it's real and you can feel it. And part of it is the venue, sure, fair enough, but part of it is also what's in the air when you're walking through a pine forest.
Very much so.
Besides the negative ions, you've got that a little bit of the pine resin is you're smelling that, and you're smelling some flowers, and you're smelling the pine needles, and you're smelling all this good stuff. But the negative ions are also huge. And you get out of the shower, you get out of the hot shower, and you kind of feel, well, of course you're clean, and you kind of had this hot water coming down, and you've got this infrared from the hot water, but you've also been breathing negative ions. Negative ions, because each droplet of water that hits the wet surface, whether it's a shower stall or a bathtub, when it hits the wet surface, by friction, it squeezes out. As the water droplet enters the surface of the water, it squeezes out a negative ion. So you're in the shower stall, you're in your shower with the curtain stuff, and you've been breathing in this negative ion, these pure negative ions, for whatever length of time you've been in the shower.
That's why we sing in the shower. Because
Well,
we're happy.
and because nobody's listening.
And because, well, that's true.
No, you know what? I found myself, I walk the dog at night. I walk him all during the day, but I walk him at night before he wants to go to bed.
Yeah.
He's a little bit older now, so he wants to go to bed before we do, but that's okay. And I'll walk him, and it's dark out, and I got my jacket on, and I got my dog, and I'm singing at the top of my lungs.
Really?
Well, because nobody there.
Love it. Love it. Singing's good for the soul.
And then the other day, I ran into one of my neighbors, and they said, "Oh, Dave, by the way, we prefer Wichita linemen." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we can hear you all the time." They said, "You know, it was a toss-up between Nobody Does It Better and Wichita linemen, and we decided Wichita linemen." I was embarrassed. But did I stop singing?
No.
It's already a done deal. So
I was singing in the shower this morning, actually. No kidding. And we have come up to our time, my friend. I feel like I love talking with you, and I know we could talk for another hour easy, but we'll do more. And
okay. Well, I hope we covered enough of the characteristics and the technologies in the air wellness that will satisfy people. If not, let us know, and we can answer those questions. And if there's specific questions, I know that customer service at Nikken, I know all those guys.
They're brilliant.
And guys and FIBRA peoples.
FIBRA
and they're very knowledgeable.
Yes.
And if you throw a question their way that they can't answer, then it will cascade down to me, and we'll get it answered.
Or cascade up. Or can you cascade up or cascade down? Well, you know what you mean.
Know.
It will.
In the dishwasher, it cascades up, but if it's
Dave,
okay,
thank
my
you
friend.
so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure. Yes, love you much. And thank you everyone for listening. I know we got a Nikken shirt there. Thanks everyone. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Please do share this episode with others. It's what we do in Nikken. Everything is about sharing. And please make sure to follow the podcast. You can follow on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and of course we put it on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so that you will know when we get new videos uploaded, and you'll be the first to see them flagged there. So thanks everyone. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.